Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Shaw Local Bears Insider Podcast. I am Chicago Bears reporter Michael Dwojak here with the Northwest Herald's Joe Aguilar as we get you ready for week 4 of the NFL. The Bears are traveling to Las Vegas to take on the Raiders. It should be a big matchup here for the Bears, especially, with that early week 5 bye. Kind of get a good chance to kind of do a little progress report for the Bears. But they've got a big matchup here. I know a lot of people are traveling to the game. I know a lot of Chicago people are going to the game. It was probably the biggest, when the schedule came out in May, people were quickly trying to figure out when they're going to Vegas, and worked out perfectly here for the end of September, Joe. So, there are a lot of West Coast transplants and there are a lot of people traveling. So I would expect it to be, I keep getting these emails that it's going to be a 50-50 crowd. So maybe it's going to be a pretty neutral site for the Bears on Sunday.
Yeah, I think, as soon as Bears fans found out they were playing in Vegas, especially this early in the season, I think it was like, well, if we can do it, let's go. I know people personally who were of that mindset. So it's a great trip to go to Vegas anytime, right? But especially if you get to see the Bears play in that beautiful new stadium. So should be a lot of fun. And I would expect to hear a lot of cheers when the Bears do something well. Hopefully they do a lot of things well Sunday.
Yeah, it should be really interesting. It's an interesting matchup, especially with what we've seen the first 3 games of the season, just with what the Bears were at that 0-2 start and then what they did against the Cowboys. It's a very interesting matchup, and I feel like we'll learn a lot about this Bears team. But before we get started into our preview, if you're joining us on YouTube, thanks so much for joining us on the live stream. Appreciate it. Make sure you guys get all your questions in there. We'll do our matchups. So if you got any big matchups, your most valuable Bear, put all that in the chat and we'll make sure to talk about it or, answer any questions in there. If you're joining us on the live stream, make sure to give us a like. That's the best way to support us and kind of help our little live stream and podcast here grow. And if you're listening on the podcast, make sure you're checking in with us at Bears Insider, at Dwojak 94, at Joe Aguilar 64. We'll always post when we're going to be doing the live stream. It's usually Friday morning and Monday morning, but sometimes that changes. So make sure you guys are checking that out. So if you want to be part of the conversation. But Joe, it's a 3:25 game. It's on CBS. You get that late afternoon window for the Bears again for a second straight week. I don't think we haven't had a home noon game yet, so we've only had one noon game so far. I know you're a big noon guy,
Yeah.
but it should be an interesting matchup here. So, Joe, with a chance to get to 2-2 here, what is your big? Actually, sorry, I'm having a brain fart here. Let's talk about the injury report. The injury report's not great. You've got 5 did not practices in the first 2 days of practice. TJ Edwards and Kyler Gordon are still nursing their hamstring injuries. We haven't seen them. So I doubt, we're recording this on Friday morning. I doubt that they'll be playing after not practicing for a couple weeks. Grady Jarrett did not practice with his knee injury for 2 straight days, but we saw that last week. So maybe he'll get back to the practice field on Friday and then he'll just try to gut it out. It seems like he's going to be nursing that knee injury here for a little bit. And obviously the 2 big ones that we saw from Sunday, Colston Loveland and Darnell Wright. Colston Loveland and Darnell Wright both have not practiced this week. Colston obviously hurt his hip early in that game on Sunday and didn't come back, and he hasn't practiced all week. Darnell, with that elbow injury, he suffered that in the second quarter, and then he came back into the game, but then he hasn't practiced the rest of the week. So I wonder what that's like, if that's kind of like a Grady Jarrett situation where, let's rest the thing and then we'll try to get Darnell right back out there on Friday. But it's not good injury news, Joe, especially, heading into the bye this early. Maybe you're kind of grateful that you have that week 5 bye that you can get guys, healthy, but you're missing a good chunk of starters on both sides of the ball at this point.
Yeah, and you're not adding guys back. I mean, we haven't really seen since the season started. Like, we had Jalen Johnson back for a half, and that was it. Kyler Gordon, I don't know, Michael, you know better than me. I don't know when we're going to get this guy back, and they really need him. And then TJ too, you need him, and he tried to come back. In the second game, he didn't do very well. So you need him back. And then really, to me, the most unsettling thing this week with the injuries is the Darnell Wright injury. And we talked just the other day about him not having a great start so far with the holding penalties, and he just doesn't. He hasn't. He don't look like he's worse than last year. I mean, he wasn't bad last year. I don't want to go and get into that again, but they need him. I mean, it was nice that Braxton Jones played so well against the Cowboys. But we got Max Crosby this week. The Bears have Max Crosby this week. And, that's one of the best defensive players in the league. He's fun, and he can be a wrecking machine. So that's a concern. But the Darnell Wright thing, I guess it's going to be Theo Benedict. I mean, Ozzie Trapillo hasn't been active the last, 2 weeks now. And from what I read from guys like yourself, that Theo's been getting the reps there in practice this week if Darnell Wright can't go over Ozzie. So it's going to be Theo Benedict. And I don't know. I know the Bears aren't facing a Super Bowl contender here, but that's a little unsettling. I don't want to use the word disturbing, but just unsettling for the Bears, especially coming off the game they had with Caleb getting the protection he had. You don't want to now have a starting old lineman out.
It's not great. I mean, that's just, I agree. It's not great. I mean, you mentioned with Kyler and TJ, Ben said week to week, we haven't gotten updates on them. I think they're just, it feels like one of those things where it's kind of like, okay, why rush? I'm sure the mindset, we've learned this early from Ben Johnson. He's going to be a coach who's not going to tell us too much about it. Like he will tell us, you'll see at the injury report a little bit later. So I don't know how much we'll learn, but those two guys have been week to week. And I think I think the mindset probably is get those hamstrings healed. We don't want this to be a whole season problem. We got the week 5 bye. Maybe they can get back into week 6, get it back into practice before they play the Commanders. They'll have that extra long week because they play on Monday night against the Commanders. So maybe they can take advantage of that. But yeah, with Colston, that kind of stinks, right? Like we'll see what happens there. Like he was targeted on the first play against the Cowboys. Caleb overthrew him. And then you saw on that 31-yard pass to him that how much of a weapon he can be. And you finally saw, all right, like we can get this guy going and we can have him be a playmaker, and then unfortunately got that hip injury. So we'll see what earlier in the week, Ben said that they're not considering like a serious injury. So maybe he comes back to practice, maybe not. Maybe it's just a 1 week thing, or I guess it'll be a 2 week thing. And then he comes back against the Commanders and he'll be fine. But you're losing a playmaker there. And I agree. I wrote about this for today's papers and yesterday online. The offensive line hit its groove. And I know like there's a context of it's the Cowboys, right? Like it's the context of that they were bringing 4 guys to pressure. You weren't having to do too much, but still not allowing a sack for 2 years. And that's a big feat for that group. And I think we've seen that group gel over the past 2 games, right? Like they've gotten progressively better. The pre-snap penalties, I think that's another thing. There were no pre-snap penalties in that game. That's been huge for them the first few games of the season. And I think they're starting to get, comfortable with each other. So losing Darnell right there, yes, I know he's committed 4 penalties so far into the season, but he's still like respectfully, like Theo Benedict hasn't had any NFL experience other than like when he was put in garbage time and left tackle against Detroit. And then obviously when he filled in for Darnell on Sunday, and then Ozzie's been inactive for the last 2 weeks. So I don't, if I'm, Pete Carroll, like I'm putting Max Crosby on whoever's their right tackle and I'm going after Caleb because like, whoever is going to be at that position, even if it's Darnell, like he's not 100% healthy, like you've got a matchup problem there, and you're probably going to have to put Cole Kmet there to chip him.
Yeah, and I know you wrote, I think it's in today's paper, I was reading it, about Drew Dahlman yesterday at practice saying, downplaying the whole we didn't allow any sacks doesn't mean we played a great game necessarily. And he's right? I mean, it's nice to build on, but it's not like, when you're a good football team, you're not like saying, hey, we didn't allow a sack today. You're just like, well, we don't expect to allow any sacks. You should get to the point where this is the norm. And there are still things to work on. No one ever plays a perfect game. But, they still need work here. I do think you'd like to see them build off that Dallas game. And now you're facing, again, Max Crosby, and that's concerning. I just don't want to see the Bears really at any unit, offense, defense, any level, have a letdown. Because I'm afraid of that. Like we were as Bears fans, you're so excited about what happened against Dallas, and we prefaced it a million times about it was Dallas.
Yeah,
but you don't want to have. Everyone was encouraged. The Bears got a lot of flowers this week, and they deserved it. But I just don't want the ceiling now come down, because then here we go again, and then it's like, this is a team you can beat, even though it's in Vegas. This is a team you could beat. I think they're favored in the game. So let's just not have a letdown, especially that offensive line. Try to build off that, and let's see what goes on Sunday.
Yeah, so I am curious, Joe. You mentioned earlier, we saw Theo Benedict working in there. I am curious, from what we see in practice, like we only see the warm-ups, like we're only there for like the warm-ups, and then maybe we'll see like one individual drill, that sort of stuff. And I think, based on that, maybe you can draw the comparison that Theo would kind of go in there. But I wonder whether Theo was put in at right tackle because Ozzie was inactive, right? And maybe that does kind of come into the factor of the Bears feel more confident that Theo can be the swing tackle and Ozzie can't. But I am curious, if what your thought process is. Like, a couple weeks ago, I think it was maybe last Friday, I feel like Ben was pretty complimentary to Ozzie, saying that he's looked the best he has and that he's really shown a lot of growth at the right side. I am curious to see, maybe do you go? I mean, you drafted this guy as your second round pick, right? Like, shouldn't this be a spot where you put in your second round pick that you drafted this year? Or do you go with I think Theo Benedict's been a really, really cool story. And I think he's done a really good job and has impressed a lot during the practices. But isn't this a spot where you would put in your second round draft pick from this year? The guy who played right tackle at Boston College?
You would think. And again, this is, I don't want to say this is a red
I'm not trying to get you going on your Ryan Poles rant. I'm not trying to get that.
But I mean, look, you traded back, and then you draft this guy, and the second round picks matter, and they don't have to contribute necessarily weeks 1 and weeks 2 or weeks 3, even, like we'd all like. But at some point, we got to know, like, what's going on here with this pick? Why has he been active? And if he is a right tackle and you can't make him a left tackle, at least not this year, then like you said, okay, now your right tackle potentially is out come Sunday. He should be the obvious choice. And if he's not the obvious choice, I will point the finger again at Ryan Poles, because this is a bad draft pick then. And maybe he turns on to be good in a year. Again, it takes time. I understand. Yeah. But this isn't looking good. This is not looking good when he can't even get on the field. And now you're going to, get, the guy who's going to earn the job when there's an opportunity. Like the next man up is not you. It's a guy who was undrafted, a second-year player out of Canada. I mean, it's not a good look for the organization. And again, I never put it on the player unless it's like a work ethic and the guy's just been, that's different.
And that's definitely not been the case here. I can tell you, like, just from hearing from him and like everyone else, like Ozzie's putting in the work, like whatever situation he's been in.
So if it's not on him, then who's it on? It's on the guy who drafted him. And maybe he would have gone, he would have been gone by the end of the second round. The Bears would have missed him. But if you like him that much and you believe in him, the bottom line is Ryan Poles does not have a good reputation with really drafting any position, but especially the offensive line. See, Kareem Amagaji. Is he still on the team, Michael?
He's injured. He's on injured reserve.
Shocking. Either he's bad or he's hurt. And there's too many guys as Ryan Poles has drafted. But I do tend to be impatient. I would never make a good GM. I'd get fired, like in a year because I'm too impatient. But at some point, we got to see what's going on with this guy, with Ozzie, and can he play? But if there's a team to put him in against, I wouldn't put him in against like the Ravens or someone like that, or someone who's really good. But maybe this is the team, even though they do have, as I mentioned again, they do have Max Crosby. But maybe you gotta see what you got here in Ozzie.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm kind of conflicted in this hypothetical situation if Darnell can't play, because obviously we're not in the rooms. We're not watching practice. I think Ben has done a good job. I think, well, the other thing is like Ben doesn't go out of his way to compliment someone if they don't deserve the compliment. We've learned that, right? So I think the fact that he did compliment Ozzy last week and said that he could be an important part of this team, whether that's later on in the season or like he didn't know that Darnell's going to get hurt, so that could potentially be this week. But it is an interesting thing because like, do you do to Ozzy what you did to Karan last year? You put him in a road situation for his first start going against Max Crosby will be lining up opposite of the right tackle, regardless of who's there. He can move around the line of scrimmage. He's very versatile, and he keeps going. He doesn't get tired, which is like I think that everyone keeps saying. I know you obviously talk up your opponent the week you're about to play them, but I do think that Max Crosby is kind of like an unheralded defensive end in this league because I feel like you hear about Micah Parsons, you hear about Myles Garrett, you hear about all the big guys, and people talk about Max Crosby, but I feel like when you watch Max Crosby play, man, he gets after it. He's so physical, he's so tough, and he keeps going. So if I'm Pete Carroll, I'm going to put him opposite of the right tackle, whoever that is. And is that a spot that you want to put your rookie second round draft pick and just ruin his confidence? Like, I feel like that plays a factor into it too, right? But it's a weird thing because you eventually need to eventually go out there and you need to play, and you need to eventually show that you can play in the NFL. And I understand that like these guys are paid well, they're playing a game, but at the end of the day, also there's the mental aspect to this, man. And if you're getting destroyed by one of the best pass rushers in the league on the road, like that could really stunt your development. And I don't know if the Bears are ready to do that to Ozzy yet.
Yeah, and then with Colston Loveland potentially being out here too, now you lose a tight end who can block, and so maybe the other tight end, Smythe, is it the guy that got the Dolphins in the offseason? Maybe he's got to play more. So that's just not good. But I just want to see the offense show that last week's performance against Dallas wasn't a fluke, and they're capable of dropping 30 every week.
All right, let's get into that matchup, Joe. We like to do our matchups, our most surprising prediction, and our most valuable pair on top of our prediction. So, Joe, what is a key matchup you'll be watching on Sunday afternoon?
Well, it's either one of the lines, right? So, but I'll go the Bears D line against the guy who I really wanted to see in Chicago, like a lot of people in the draft, Ashton Jeanty, who has not gotten off to a good start with the Raiders. I think he's rushed for less than 150 yards in 3 games, something in that area. Not good. But that's a bad offensive line. And so maybe he would have been a perfect Bear because he had no offensive line to run either. So he would have been the perfect pick here, averaging 2.9 a carry. And but he's explosive, he's fun, and maybe this is his breakout game. Is it against this Bears defense, which has shown in 3 weeks, even in the win against Dallas, that hasn't been able to stop the run? So can the Bears keep him quiet? Ashton Jeanty, that is. So I'm curious what they're going to do. The Bears defense, we know, was a strong effort after early looked like they might be in some trouble against Dallas, but they seemed to right the ship. That long drive the Bears had it in that third quarter to start the second half was good and keeping them off the field. But I'm really curious to see what the Bears defense can do against Ashton Jeanty. Not that I want to see Geno Smith throw the ball 40 times necessarily, because he's still a good quarterback. I don't think he's one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the game, but he's proven certainly with that rebirth he had in Seattle that he can still play and he can be effective. And then of course you got the tight end, Brock Bowers. So that's an interesting matchup too. But can the Bears shut down the run game and keep Ashton Jeanty quiet?
Yeah, I'm also looking at that. That was one of my ones. Through 3 weeks, Jeanty hasn't had a strong start to the season. He's averaging 48 rushing yards per game, 3.1 yards per carry. He did have a season high 633 yards off of 17 carries in that blowout loss to the Commanders. But it's an interesting matchup because the Bears have not done well against the run so far this season. I mean, the Bears have allowed the 6th most amount of rushing yards, 139.3 and per game, and then they've allowed the 6th most total rushing yards, 418. So if there was a get right game, that was going to happen for Genty, I mean, this would be it, right? Like the Bears' deep run defense has not been good. It wasn't good all of last season. It got worse without Andrew Billings and, other big defensive guys up the middle. So that's a big matchup for me because like the Bears haven't stopped that yet. They haven't stopped the run. If it wasn't for a big, forced fumble and recovery by Stevenson, Dallas was going to probably score on that first drive because they were running the ball really well. So this is a big spot for this Bears defense because if the Raiders are able to get Genty going, it could get pretty ugly because he's shown you what he can do in college. I know that college isn't what the pros is, but if you're going maybe against a softer run defense like the Bears have shown to have in the first 3 weeks, he can be a really tough weapon to stop. And then that obviously opens the passing game for Geno Smith because you have to focus more on the run.
Yeah, that is a concern because he has the big playability too.
Yeah.
So, look, I still wish you were in a Bears uniform, but I'm happy with the Colston Loveland pick. We just got to see more, and it's really a shame about him getting with that hip injury. It didn't sound like it was a serious injury, and maybe they're just being safe. And they've played 3 games essentially without using him anyway, and maybe then again you get the bye week. But anyway, that's certainly a matchup to watch. Along with, as we were mentioning about the Bears offensive line against the Raiders front, and they've got 7 sacks, I think it is, for their first 3 games. So a little better than the Bears, and they got some good production from the kid who's playing defensive tackle, who was like a 7th-round pick last year. I think he's got 3 sacks. So that's an interesting matchup too.
Yeah, that was going to be my matchup. I'm looking at how do you stop Max Crosby? That's my biggest thing. I mean, you're not going to stop him. He's going to get to Caleb. He's going to get quarterback sets. How do you limit him? That's going to be the biggest thing because you saw what Caleb can do with the perfect pocket, right? Like or a near perfect pocket. Yep. He can throw the ball across the field. He can make plays longer with his legs sometimes. But when he stays in the pocket, he's so effective. And he's like, it's not perfect. Like he still needs to get rid of some of those errant throws. But you started to see what he could potentially look like in Ben Johnson's offense with him. So, but if Max Crosby is getting after him and you can't stop him, that's going to disrupt everything. That's going to kill drives. It's going to, really take away, Caleb's confidence. So I think you need to come up with a good plan. And I know he's probably going to line up against the right tackle. So do you put Cole Kmet in there? Do you put Kyle Monungai in there a little bit more to, run block? Do you put Roshan Johnson back in there? I think he's shown you that he's a good run blocker. Obviously, he's a great special teamer. You're not going to – it's become very clear that you're not going to use him as a running back, but you might as well use him as a run blocker. But you got to scheme things up pretty well. And maybe that is, do you get the short passes going? Do you set up more runs opposite of where Max Crosby set up? Like you gotta eliminate him from this game, and you can't let him dictate this game because if he dictates this game, then it's going to be a long afternoon, and I don't think you're going to see the offensive performance that you've been wanting to see for a second consecutive week from Caleb. So that's really my biggest matchup. How do you limit Max Crosby? Because if you don't limit him, he's just going to dictate how the game goes, and it's going to be a long afternoon for that offensive line, regardless of where he is.
And I think it's a big test for Caleb, too. I mean, any good quarterback knows where that one guy is, that one guy that can disrupt things, can cause a turnover, can cause a negative play. So this is a good test for Caleb because Dallas, the Micah Parsons era is over in Dallas, so he didn't have to deal with that last week. It's another disruptor. And we saw the Bears themselves how, when you get a turnover, it just takes one. It can really change the momentum of a football game. So we can't have that. Can't have the sacks, and just know where he's at. And if you have to throw one into the third row, do it. Just don't take the negative plays. He's been better at that this year, progressively from game to game. And let's see more of that because we just don't want to see this offense take a step back after what they did against Dallas.
Robert is chiming in from across the pond. Good to hear from you, Robert. Worried about the run game on both sides of the ball. Could be a breakout game for Genti here. Yeah, we were talking a little bit about that earlier, Robert. But Joe mentioned that about for Genti. But I agree. Both sides of the running attack. Like you need to get your own running attack going as well, and that'll really open things up. It's been interesting because when you look at the tape, the blocks seem good, right? And the blocks seem like they're working. And I wouldn't say that DeAndre Swift, and it's not only on him, but I wouldn't say that the running backs are going the wrong way per se. It just isn't clicking for some reason. I don't know whether it's the timing off. And, Ben Johnson and the players talked about on Monday how, as an offensive unit together, they watched the runs and they were talking about how this is the offensive lineman's role. This is the running back's role. This is what the run blocker is supposed to do, right? So it's and DeAndre Swift said this earlier this week that they're close. Like it's a small thing that they need to fix in order to get the run game going. So I don't know, maybe you're encouraged by that, but maybe it is encouraging to hear that they know what they need to be doing. And maybe it's that little thing that they need to fix, but it needs to be higher there. They average 3 yards a run against the Cowboys. And you just can't, you just can't do that if you want to succeed in this NFL.
Well, I got to tell you, I was surprised to see the Bears are 15th in their rushing game.
The rushing yards numbers aren't terrible. Like they're mid-tier.
So 15th, I'm thinking it just watching the games, it looks like, well, they must be 26th, 27th.
Sure.
One of the 5 worst teams in the league running the football. They're not.
No.
So it's maybe more of an indictment on the entire league because there are other teams that are struggling to run the football. And, it's been a passing league for many years now, but still, I mean, if there are things we know in Chicago as Bears fans, we know what good defense looks like, and I don't want to go all nostalgic and everything, but we know what good running games look like. We know what good running backs look like from watching the greats. So and we know this isn't it. I mean, even guys like Jordan Howard were more productive, I mean, not even talking about the top 5 great running backs of all time. And Jordan Howard's not on that list, but, he had a couple of good years there for a while.
Sure.
So, but this just looks bad. But then you look at the rest of the league, like, there are a lot of teams that are struggling running the football. So, but the Bears got to be better at that. We've talked about it, 3 games, they're 0 for 3 with production in the running game.
Yeah, I would agree. And, Robert brings up a good point. We now know that Caleb can do without pressure, with no run game. Crosby and company will have a field day. Yeah, totally. I would agree. And then would have been nice to have nabbed Scatterboo. I agree. I really wanted the Bears to grab Scatterboo. Obviously, when they didn't get when they didn't get Henderson and those guys, early in the second round, I was like, all right, like maybe they'll get Scatterboo. But, you can't talk. I don't know. Like you can't talk about the past at this point.
We can.
It is. I mean, we could, but that'll be another hour podcast. Joe, what is your big surprise for Sunday afternoon?
Big surprise for Sunday afternoon. It's a good question, Michael. I think the Bears defense will continue to get takeaways. I think I don't know why I'm saying this. I think they're going to get some pressure on that Raiders offensive line, which isn't good. Again, if they have a big game, it's not like, here they come. Here come the mighty Bears, and they're going to get 6 sacks Saturday. But I think they'll find a way to get some pressure. And I think they're going to build off that game. Again, we're not going to get the same kinds of games that we got from Tremaine Edmonds and Tyreek Stevenson every Sunday. If we do, I mean, those guys are going to the Pro Bowl, and I don't know if that's going to happen. But I think the Bears defense has another opportunity to not dominate, but certainly make an impact, get some turnovers. And I think, again, I still believe in Dennis Allen, even, though, he authored the 52-point fiasco against Detroit. It's his defense. That's on him. But I do think they can, especially, I mean, you're playing a quarterback in Geno Smith, who's good, but he's not better than Dak Prescott. So I think the Bears defense is going to, I don't want to say have a game, quote unquote, but I think they'll be able to get some turnovers and get a little more pressure. I'm not as confident in that, but I think they'll get some turnovers come Sunday.
Yeah, I like that pick. I like that a lot because especially with Geno Smith at quarterback, you saw what he did against Monday Night Football. He's prone to make mistakes. Like the joke is like 1 week you get good Geno Smith, the other week you get bad Geno Smith. And I think the trend right now is that you're going to get bad Geno Smith. And he's prone to make mistakes. Geno Smith is what he is at this point in this league. However long he had his rejuvenation in Seattle. Pete Carroll, he's reunited with Pete Carroll in Las Vegas. Geno Smith can make you plays. He can do stuff. But then you also saw what Geno Smith could do last year against when he was with Seattle when they came to Chicago late in the year. It was a 6-3 game. Like you're not going to get a fantastic performance sometimes. So I think that'll be a big thing. And the turnovers will be big. If you can pick him off a couple times, if you can force a fumble here and there, you saw what that does for your offense. So I like that pick. I like what that could do. And I think that'll really help the Bears offense if they can, create some turnovers. So I like that. My surprise prediction is going to be that the Bears offense keeps clicking. And I think the fact that Declan Doyle was asked about this, like, do you not, since it's going to be like a 50-50 crowd for the most part on Sunday, do you not have to go to a silent count? Because, you're not going to have as much crowd noise. And he talked about like, you probably still a road game. Like you don't know what you're going to get. Like you could get a lot of noise. So like, they're not going to not practice the silent count or whatever. But I do wonder whether that plays a role in communication for Caleb. But maybe the communication isn't as tough as it was in Detroit. Like, I don't think it's going to be as tough as Detroit at all. Like, I couldn't hear myself think in Detroit. I don't think we're going to see that in Las Vegas. So I think that the communication is going to look good. And I think that they continue to grow as an offense. I think they're going to continue to, Caleb's going to pass the ball around. He might have to scramble more than he did against the Cowboys. That's just going to be inevitable. Maybe you get the run game going more. But I think the offense looks like it did, if not a little bit better than it did Dallas, because I think that this will be a pretty favorable road environment for this team at this point.
Yeah, I like that. I sure hope it does. And again, look, I'm sure every football team from high school to college to pros talks about not giving up any sacks. And again, that's not just on the O-line, but it's on the quarterback too.
Yeah.
And let's just avoid the negative plays. That was such a refreshing game against Dallas because, again, no pre-snap penalties. Hooray, finally. And no sacks allowed. Hooray. And that's all you have to do. You don't have to play your A game like against Detroit in order to beat this Raiders team.
Yeah.
And I know it's any given Sunday and, the Browns beat the Packers. How it happens. So you don't have to play. So I don't like to win 20-17, but if they have to win 20-17, then they win 20-17. I want to see the offense continue to flourish though. And I probably wouldn't be happy with 20 points. No one would be after scoring 31, whatever it was against Dallas. So let's keep it going. I think there's a good opportunity for them. There's certainly a confident group right now. Just don't take the negative plays and particularly don't get sacked and throw it away because you're going to get chances against this Raiders team and this defense, I think.
Other surprise predictions, Robert saying that Montez Sweat gets 3 sacks. Wow, Robert, that would be a surprise. I would be surprised by that, but I like where you're thinking. Rick chiming in, joining us. My surprise is 100 yards rushing for Swift. I could see that if you're trying to especially kind of stay away from Max Crosby, you're trying to. It's almost there. It's like for some, like you like watch it and you're like, man, that should be clicking, right? Like it looks good, but it's not clicking for some reason. So I like that prediction, Rick. I think that you would see, you can see that big performance. Before we get to the most valuable Bear, Joe, I'm going to do this one specifically for you. I think you see Shamar Turner on Sunday. He obviously looked. He looked a little bit, in the second, it was his first game playing against the Cowboys. He's been trying to work himself back up after missing all of training camp with that ankle injury. He started to kind of get after the offensive line of the Cowboys as the game kind of progressed in that second wave. And I think if Grady Jarrett isn't 100%, I think you can see him be a little bit more impactful this week. And I think you're going to hear Shamar Turner's name, whether that's creating more of a pressure. I'm not going to be here to like say that he's going to get his first career sack. Maybe he does, but I do think he's going to have more of an impact than you saw in his debut last week. And I think that he's not a finished product by any means, but I think he's starting to click.
Well, that'd be a tremendous surprise and a great story if he can do something positive, because I've seen on social media that all the snaps he played against Dallas. I know it was late. It was basically with Dallas playing catch up. But he looked very Zach Pickens-ish. I mean, I didn't see him move anybody. I didn't see like, wow. Again, I've never coached D-line. I'm probably big enough now I could play D-line. I never played D-line. But this second-round pick, and one of the listeners mentioned before, Cam Scadaboo. Look, that's not second guessing. Bears fans want him. So many teams wanted him after he flashed in college last year. We could use him a lot more than Shamar Turner. So that would be wonderful if Shamar Turner announced his presence as a Chicago Bear Sunday in Vegas.
One more surprise prediction. DJ gets rolling. CJ saying this. DJ gets rolling with the week with 2 touchdowns. All right, Joe, most valuable Bear. I didn't even look up the score because I know I didn't win. Caleb Williams, you had him. You used your first quarterback pick. He obviously had a season day. Colston Loveland had 1 catch and he got injured. So obviously Colston wasn't going to win that one, unfortunately. So I am winning 2-1 in the season so far. And I have the first pick this week. And I am not going to I am not burning my second quarterback pick. I already used one earlier this year. I'm going to go with, I don't think I went with him yet this year. I'm going with Rome. Or maybe I did go. I can't remember if I did. But I'm going with Rome. He's coming back home. He's coming back to Las Vegas, where he grew up, obviously, before he went on to Washington. I think it's a homecoming game for him. I think he's going to be a big target for Caleb. You've seen already through 3 weeks how much of a target he can be. And I think that those two continue their rapport. Especially, I think they could potentially have a late touchdown. That'd be really big. So Rome is going to be my most valuable Bear.
That's a good one. I was going to go with Rome myself, but I'll go a different direction. I sure hope he can just continue to build off what he's done. And, I think it's clear that combination, Caleb and Rome, is developing. And I think the best is yet to come. I just want to see that continue. And he doesn't have to catch 8 passes every week. But I think he should be an obvious target once they get in the red zone and even outside, when they're really within striking distance of the end zone, that Caleb should be looking for him and has been. So good pick. I'm excited to see what he can just continue to do throughout the season, Rome, Adunze. So I will go. I'm saying like the defense is going to do something. I just don't know where it's going to come from, whether it's going to be Tremaine, Tyreek, Montez Sweat. I can go a lot of directions. I would sure love a 3-sack game for Montez Sweat. Who wouldn't? But I'm going to go with Montez. I don't know why. I'll go with Montez Sweat. And even though he got that fourth quarter sack when the game was pretty much decided by then against Dallas, sometimes even pro athletes need confidence, and maybe he's off the schneid here with the first sack, and I think he gets a couple, and I think maybe he silences some people who are still skeptical, including myself. A lot of Bears about can he keep it up, and can he play like the guy he did the first several games when the Bears got him 2 years ago. So I'm going to go with Montez Sweat. Fingers crossed, and we'll see if you notice him on Sunday in Vegas.
He's definitely someone that you need to see more of, right? And you obviously saw that first sack against the Cowboys late in the fourth quarter, which was good to see. Maybe that kind of propels him moving forward. But yeah, if you listen, if you're going to win this game, you need to get Montez Sweat going. You were able to win last week, kind of with having him make some sort of an impact. So, I think that'll be a good pick. Robert chiming in, he agrees. He's going with Rome, beginning to be a safe bet. Rick is also going with Rome. Homecoming game makes sense. Sure, he goes off. All right, Joe. Bears and Raiders, 3:25 Central Time on CBS. What happens Sunday afternoon?
I think they keep scoring, and I think, because to me, if they have to win 20-17, whatever, I know a W is a W, but you don't want to see this offense look normal again. You want to see it continue to progress. This is a good team to do it against. They're not going to drop 52. They're not the Detroit Lions against the Bears yet, but I think they're going to score, and I think they're going to score 35. I'll say they win 35-24.
All right. That'd be pretty. I mean, I'm sure a lot of Bears fans would be happy with that. Looking at the line, right, I think it's still, this game is still a pick 'em. The Raiders are still a 1.5 or minus 1.5 point favorite. That's basically a pick 'em, especially, if you go with the home stuff. And that's kind of how I feel in this game. I can see either way. I can see this game going either both ways. I can see this team putting up a good performance against a Raiders team that I don't think is perfect or great or anything like that, especially this early in the season. But I can also see, their playmakers make plays. I can see Max Crosby impacting this game. I can see Ashton Genty finding his own. I can see Geno Smith getting things going. So I think that it is a pick-em game. I do think that the Bears win this game. This is a really important game, for how important a Week 4 game could be. Robert is saying, chimes in and says this big one could be a crossroads for our season. Listen, you go into the bye 2-2, you're feeling much better than you go into the bye 1-3, going to Washington in Week 6 on the road on Monday Night Football, where you got to deal with for the whole week, you're going to be hearing about the Hail Mary. That's just what the whole game is going to be. That's what the whole week leading up to that game is going to be, is just talking about the Hail Mary and losing that game. So do you want to head into that matchup at 2-2, or do you want to head into that matchup 1-3? I think this team has said all the same stuff. We'll see if they practice the right stuff. I think this ends up being a 21-17 Bears win. It's a low scoring game. 21-17, it's not 6-3, but I think the Bears make enough plays to win on the road and head into the bye with the 2-2 record. I think they build that momentum, and I like what I'm seeing from them so far. And I think they know what's ahead of them. I don't think they're, looking past the Raiders, but I think they know that they need to kind of come back from that 0-2 start and kind of redeem themselves heading into the bye.
Yeah, you don't want to be sitting on this law if they lose, especially if they lay an egg and they just look bad. You don't want to be sitting on that for 2 weeks. But then again, even if they win, like you're saying, would you say 21-17? Even if they win by that margin, let's not lose sight of the fact that, again, this season is all about the offense. Do we have the franchise quarterback, and do we have the right coach? That's got to be trending up. And I'm not saying you're going to score 31 and then every game after that you're going to be scoring higher and higher and higher. But 21 would not be satisfying. I know a win's the most important thing, but are they a playoff team this year, the Bears? Probably not, unless all of a sudden, boom, is this really the acceleration and maturation of this football team as a whole really just starts to kick into high gear. I don't know if we're there yet. I don't know if that's going to happen, but it's still about the offense and Caleb developing, the receivers developing, the O-line developing outside of Joe Thuney, who has nothing to prove. So we still need to see a lot of that. But if they win a stinker, let's say, they're going to do the all, hey, we're learning how to win. It's good. We got momentum. I don't know. I think it'll be kind of a meh feeling by Bears fans if they win a stinker. But so again, I want them to win as a Bears fan, but I want to see this offense continue to pound, get better. And this is a team you can do it. You're not playing the Philadelphia Eagles. You're not playing the Ravens. You're not playing a juggernaut here. If you want to start establishing yourself as a football team, you got to start winning these games. And it would be nice to get your first road win. and again, because you're going to be sitting on it now for 2 weeks, and you'd rather be feeling good for 2 weeks and knowing we got better. We got better this week than we were even against Dallas when they played well on both sides of the football.
Rick chiming in, he's got a Bears win, 34-24. CJ chiming in, 21-14 Bears, last minute touchdown from Caleb. Yeah, I agree. I think, this is Rick chimed in and said we have to win this game. 2 weeks of doom and gloom will not be good before the Washington game. I agree. And that's kind of why I'm like, if it is a 21-17 game, all right, like you work on some stuff, but 2-2 is better than 1-3 heading into that game. So I agree. I agree with you, Joe. Obviously, you want to win the game and you want the offense to look good, but I think a lot of Bears fans need to have the mindset this year that there's going to be some clunkers this year. This is not like you said, it's not a playoff team at this point. Maybe they can turn things around and, can kind of build that confidence. But the way they've played through 3 weeks of the season, you're not looking toward the playoffs right now. You're just trying to build confidence and you're trying to build momentum in Ben Johnson's system. So, winning on, it was interesting. We talked about this on Monday. Kevin Byard talked about you need to learn how to win, right? Like you need to learn how to win and how to react after you win. And that was a big focal point for him Sunday after the game, where it's like, we won a game, but we can't be going crazy about it because we won a game, because like we got to get back to it. And I think that's an important step of becoming a winning team, right? Which is so obvious. You need to learn how to win, right? Like that's such a very obvious statement, but that is an important part where you need to learn how to win on the road and, make plays that maybe don't look perfect. You need to learn how to stop this guy or whatever. So I think for a team that's learning and growing this year, this will be a very important step in their development and can, obviously have a major impact on how the rest of the season goes.
Yeah, we've heard that cliche in every sport, learning how to win, right? And pick the sport. We've heard it from teams, from players.
Sure.
And there's truth to that. So like, what does that mean? To me, it means like, if like, it's just not, let's just say hypothetically, it's just not working early against the Raiders for whatever reason. You've made some pre-snap penalties. You dropped the ball. You made a bad throw. You're just kind of mad. All of a sudden, like, dang, man, it's the third quarter, and we can't worry about dropping 40 on somebody. We just got to win the football game. Okay, so now let's just try to clean up that little thing. Let's be smart about everything. And that's where coaching will come into play too here, because we saw too many games. I don't want to keep revisiting last year, but we will at times, or years past here, but where they got a shot and then they shoot themselves in the foot to the very end. So stop doing that. So if it's just not on, if you don't have your best fastball today, you don't have your best stuff, as they say in baseball, how do you get through that and get a W? Because that does matter. Next year, when hopefully they're better, a lot of these guys will be gone because turnover is inevitable in every sport. So for certain guys, it's really important. For the quarterback, for the receiver, for some of those old linemen, for some of those guys to secondary. So learning moments like that and not trying to do too much, I think that's hard, especially because probably as an athlete, like you want to, you're very confident, but some days it's just not going to be there. So that's when it's like, okay, look, we're going to have to win this one ugly because we don't have our A game today. And then you figure it out. And that's part of I think anyway, one way of looking at the learning to win aspect of it.
For sure. All right, guys, get in your final comments before we say goodbye. We got to hit the road. I got to go listen to Ben talk up at Halas Hall. So if you got any final questions, hit us up. CJ asking the question, will there be a pod during the bye week? We will do a podcast on Monday recapping the Raiders game. I'll join you guys from Las Vegas at 10 a.m. So make sure you guys get that in your planning book. And then we'll probably not do a podcast on Friday just with the bye week. Though the Bears do practice on Tuesday and Wednesday, which is very highly unusual, and that was not part of my planning. But it was, so we'll be off on Friday. We'll talk on Monday. Rick chiming in, any word on Ozzie maybe playing? We're talking a little bit earlier. No, I know, Rick, you kind of chimed in a little bit later. We'll see. We'll learn more from Ben Johnson today. I don't know how much he'll give us He likes to play coy with this type of stuff. So I don't know if he'll tell you whether Ozzy's going to be starting or not. But it'll be interesting to watch. If Darnell is ruled out today, I think I would put it at a 70 to 30 chance that Theo starts compared to Ozzy at this point. And I don't know. We don't watch practices. Like, we don't know who's getting the first team reps. We only see them doing individual drills. And Theo was doing the first team individual drills next to Jonah Jackson. Whether that changes when we're gone and they're like, all right, the media's gone, now let's get Ozzy in there. I don't know how much you think about that type of stuff. But at this point, Friday morning, I put it at a 70-30 shot that Theo starts if Darnell can't play. But obviously that can quickly change on Sunday morning. All right, guys, that's everything that we've got for this week. Thanks so much for joining us. Just a quick reminder, if you're joining us on YouTube, thanks so much. Thanks to all the guys for giving their comments and questions. If you like what you guys hear, make sure you hit the like button. That's the best way to support us, help our podcast grow. And if you're listening on the podcast, couldn't make the live stream, want to be part of the conversation, make sure you listen to check out our social medias. We like to do this every Friday morning and Monday morning. Sometimes that changes, but make sure you guys are joining us so you guys can get in the questions like Rick, Robert, and CJ did this morning. Make sure you're following Joe at Joe Aguilar 64. He's got your Friday night coverage, and they'll have your Bears 3 and out on Sunday afternoon. And make sure you're following me from Las Vegas. I'll have your full coverage from Las Vegas. We'll have everything broken down and take a look at what things kind of are looking at as we head into that week 5 bye. So for Joe and I, thanks so much for joining us, and we will talk to you guys on Monday morning.